here with Oscar Verduga from Trusted Realty Inspection, another episode of the Donan Show. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their comments, their feedbacks, and for watching. It's been a great ride so far, and I know you're going to find a lot of value with this. Oscar, welcome to the show. How are you doing, man?
Hi, Eddie. Thank you for having me. Pretty excited to talk about some interesting topics today and share some knowledge to your viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. So Oscar's one of our preferred inspectors. He's been working with our clients for many years, and he's absolutely fantastic at what he does. But I'm going to let him tell us a little bit about yourself, Oscar.
I got into home inspections and opened up my own business about 3 years ago now. I also speak Spanish, so a lot of times Spanish-speaking clients feel more comfortable in their own language. So I'm able to just explain to them that, and they feel more at ease knowing that they fully understand what's going on in the home. And I'm also a member of the Canadian Association of Home Inspectors, which is an association Canada-wide, and they have the highest standards for home inspectors, and even in provinces where you need licensing, they're the ones that take care of that and hold them accountable, basically.
Good. And what's your background? Like, what were you doing before the inspections?
I come from the automotive industry, licensed for about 15 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I got into home inspections. As a trade, the automotive industry is not the greatest out of all of them. So I wanted to explore something else, have my own business. And one of the options was home inspections. And I just felt like I had the skill of already doing inspections for cars for so many years.
Attention to detail.
And then even having to fix them. Now with home inspections, I just tell them what's wrong and somebody else can go and fix it.
That's an easy job. Yeah, you just tell them what's wrong and let somebody else deal with it. That's good. What I like about Oscar, what I like about your job that you do a really good job, but you also inform people a lot through social media. So if you're not following him, after we'll share the links, and he actually puts a lot of educational content from social media, and you walk people through the inspection process and little finds that come along the way, right?
Yeah. I feel like the industry, there's a lot of older inspectors. Typically, people get into the trade as a second career later on. So I feel like my youth has a huge advantage for that, and there's not much transparency. So by doing these videos and teaching people, there's a lot of fear going to a home inspection.
Yes.
So by providing information, making these videos, I try to put people at ease and that it's not so bad. Some things that are common, and just hearing experiences from other agents and clients that have gone through inspections and how the inspector acted during it. So I try to show that it's not all like that, and there's better options out there.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring you here, because I think it's not talked a lot about inspections, right? We talk about mortgages, we talk about showing houses, staging, and everything like that. But inspections, it's a big part, especially now in this market. Now inspections are back. Yeah. We might have talked a couple of years ago, and there was basically very little inspections. People were going in firm. But now inspections are back, and I think it's necessary as a buyer. There's no reason why you should skip on the home inspection. What is a home inspection? For somebody who's never bought a home before, or somebody new to Canada, like what they're watching right now, what's a home inspection?
Yeah, so with the home inspection, I go in, typically depending on the size of the home, we can say 2 hours, 2.5 hours for your typical size home. And I go over top to bottom, everything that I'm able to see. So we check the roof, the exterior structure of the home, the foundation, work my way up from the basement, checking air conditioner, furnace, all the main items in the home, and checking the overall condition of them, the function. A lot of times, certain things we can't see, like the electrical or plumbing behind the walls.
Right.
But we have tools like infrared cameras, outlet testers, moisture meters that even though we can't see behind the walls, and to some degree we're not fully required to check, but for peace of mind and for providing a better service to our clients, we have all these other equipment to get a better picture of the home. We provide a full report with pictures and recommendations of timelines, when to do the repairs, and kind of prioritizing major and smaller maintenance items. And you get this full list, kind of like a to-do list for your home. And you get a good idea of what the home needs in the next 5-10 years. So you can make a better informed decision when you're purchasing a home to make sure you leave room in your budget for any of these repairs.
Right. And I guess I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So for somebody who's never been through the home buying process, generally what would happen is that you're shopping with your realtor, you find a home that you like, you put in an offer, and you make that offer conditional on several factors. The most common conditions are, first of all, your finance condition, making sure that the bank will approve you for the final mortgage, and the second is a home inspection, at which point you would hire somebody like Oscar to walk through the home and pretty much tell you if there are any underlying issues that you might not be aware or any big ticket items that you might need to repair. And you still have the option that during that conditional period to walk away from the deal if he finds major things or things that you're not comfortable taking on. So I guess that's the whole process before he comes in. Now, talking about the inspection itself, what are the main items that you're like the main ticket items that you look for during an inspection? Like if you had 5 or 4 or 5 that you're gonna name, what are the big ones?
Right away, water. We throughout the home inspection. One thing that's always top of mind is checking for moisture, water. That is the biggest thing that destroys homes. Yeah. From the shingles, in the attic, the foundation, the landscaping, that's huge. So everything to do with how water can come into the home is number one. And then other safety items like electrical is also a big one. Whenever a home has been renovated, we take extra care because we want to see who did it, if it was a contractor, how well they did it, if it was like a homeowner that did
DIY.
Yeah. So we look for certain things to kind of give us an idea of how thorough or how good of a job they did. And then that kind of puts us at ease, or it says, you know what, we need to get another electrician to do a complete check of the electrical system. So those would be the 2 biggest items. Then other things are depending on the age of the home. Some things have 15 or 20-year life expectancies. So when I go in, I see kind of the age of the home and look for what's been replaced and what's going to be needing to be replaced soon.
Yeah, for sure. And I find from my experience working with you that sometimes as you said earlier, you can't really look behind the walls. You can't go with a hammer and as much as clients ask you to. I know I've heard that. You can't do that, right? So I guess you're relying on a lot of clues. Yeah. Right? You're relying on clues that the electrical might not be, well, you might see that on the panel, or you're relying on clues that they might be humidity in the basement by your humidity meter or a foundational crack. Right? That's a big one that we see all the time, right? It's like whether a crack is a problem or it's a normal crack. Can you talk more about that? Because I was asked that today. Yeah. Like, so how do you know the difference if it's going to be an issue or not? Because there's cracks everywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So like every home, it's like eventually you're going to get cracks on the foundation, and it's typical of the drying process of concrete that it just cracks. Sometimes that's why you see on sidewalks that they're like sectioned off. That's because they want to avoid cracking. But in a home, you can't really do that, or it's not common practice. So you'll get some cracking. Now, if it's small, like just like a hairline crack, it's totally fine, normal. What we look for is any kind of moisture coming through, any wet spots. If it's not wet, we also look for any efflorescence. It's called. It looks like almost like salt on the wall, and that's from moisture that was there at one point and has dried, and all the minerals have been left behind. So another thing to watch out for cracks is if they're like out of level, like one side is higher. If you run your hand through it, one side is higher than the other, or if you're able to stick a pen in the crack.
Oh, I thought it was like a nickel or something like that. Yeah, a coin, or a quarter.
But something big like that is significant.
Right, and especially it's difficult sometimes when the basement's finished, right? Because it's going to the basement, you might not be able to see it. We've encountered that situation in an inspection. I remember Oscar was working for one of our buyers, and there was a sign there was humidity coming in, but we really couldn't pinpoint it until we got to the shower, and you could see right behind it. If you remember that house, it was a mold, full of mold, and he kind of snuck his camera in there with the flash, and then it came out, it was all black, and it was a good thing you found it, because otherwise, if we wouldn't have been doing that, the home buyer would be stuck with that house, and it's a big repair.
Yeah, so something like that was like, it didn't make sense, because the paint didn't match. They really did a sloppy job, so it wasn't even like too hard to. And I'm already going in there just looking for red flags. So as soon as I saw that, there was a closet on the back, and it's like all full of mold and.
Yeah, mold's a big one, right? That's what people concern. Like whenever people hear mold, rightfully so,
Yeah.
They're like immediately signing their walking papers most of the time.
Yeah,
Most of the time.
yeah. It's a big fear for people. Yeah, in the basement, in the attic. That's why a lot of times the home inspection is going good. You know, the buyers are feeling confident, and then
Until they get to the attic.
Until they get to the attic, yeah. And then,
yeah, I have a funny story. So this was back in the day, even before I met you. I had a client that was buying a beautifully renovated home in Brampton. Okay, and I took the house to the mortgage broker first just to make sure doing the full pre-approval process before we put an offer and everything like that. And I remember the mortgage broker at that point told me, "Hey, listen, watch out for these really renovated houses because sometimes they're hiding stuff in there, right?" So this struck me as a crazy comment. Rather than saying, "Hey, it's such a beautiful house," that's the first thing he said. So I'm thinking, okay, well, whatever, to each their own sort of thing. And they're doing the inspection. Everything's passing with flying colors. Not passing, that's a wrong word. We'll talk about that soon.
Yeah.
But everything's going well. Everything's great until the guy goes up into the attic, right? And the amount of mold in that attic, I've never seen before. He took pictures, like it was in the trusses, it was everywhere in the sheets. Like the guy said, basically, he's not a roofing expert, but it had to be like lifted up, picked up, and brand new one, right? And of course, my buyer decided to walk away. But it's just a funny story. Everything was great until you got up there, and it was like complete silence from the guy up there. I'm like, what do you find? You still there? And he's just like shocked.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. That's that we see, agents as well. Like you guys know, so it's like if you see that we're up there for a while or quiet, it's like it's like.
and one thing is like from what the guy told us, it could have been prevented. So during the renovation process, this particular story, that house had been bought 2 years before and it had been flipped, right? So the homeowners did the work themselves, I assume. And what the guy said is like it was improper ventilation from the washroom. And actually, apparently, they showered a lot. It was like 4 kids in the family, right? And all that humidity was going into the attic, and that's what caused the mold. So it's something that's completely preventable.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm saying this is because when we walked away from the deal, the agent's like, no, that's no way. We inspected the house when we bought it. And here's the inspection report. And in that inspection report, it actually mentioned that there was improper ventilation in the attic. So the inspector read it, and it's like, this is probably what caused it, right?
Yeah.
So it was an interesting story, and I always remember that. So whenever I tell people they're too happy, I say, wait till he goes in the attic. Let's just wait for that and see what happens.
And we can actually talk about that. So like some of the things that are common when the house has been renovated is like lack of ventilation. So sometimes they'll change the laundry and bring it up to the second floor, and they'll hook up the dryer and vent it into the attic. And it's like I go in the attic and it's like the whole attic is just full of lint.
Yeah, we've been through that,
Yeah, and then other things is the electrical, they take shortcuts too. And sometimes it's not long enough, there's not enough space to put any more breakers. So they start tapping in and doubling up each breaker. And you're not allowed to do that. Unless
that's so common. Like out of 3 inspections, 1/3, you always tell me, or even half, it's double tap, right?
Yeah.
Like it's always, I don't know why people do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's space in the panel.
Sometimes
that's
there's
what
space,
shocks me. It tells me I don't know why they did this, because there's space right here, but they double tapped it. So.
They wanted to save on buying a new breaker. Okay. Yeah, sometimes, there's breakers where even if you don't have enough space on the panel, there's different breakers where they do allow for like 2 wires to go in, but those are very few that they do that. Ventilation, even on older homes too, standards change, so the vent on top of the roof is not enough, and they do renovations to add more insulation, so now the home is more sealed, so there's less ventilation, and those are kind of some of the shortcuts.
You cover a lot. Like I know the inspection process is quite extensive. I'm guessing you go from top to bottom. You're looking at the roof, you're looking at the attic, you're looking at the foundation, furnace, mechanical systems, and everything like that. You even do the appliance. I see you taking, you test the appliances to make sure that pretty much everything that's included in the house, at least at the time of inspections, you get in working order. Yeah,
a lot appliances is something that gets skipped a lot of times. As inspectors, it's not a required item.
Right.
So that's why some inspectors skip over that. I do it because it's like it's not a big deal, right? An appliance, some maintenance you can do on it, but it's still something that I don't want the client to move into the home and then they go to make their first meal and then find out that some of the burners or the oven is not working, and then it's like it's such a good experience goes to sour, and now they start calling the agent. Everybody gets a phone call.
Everyone gets a phone call. And it's good. No, it's honestly greatly appreciated, because I find that the inspection when a house is not completely destroyed, because you and I have inspected houses that are shot down, but when they're not completely destroyed, then these things matter, because it's kind of like a budget. Buyers are creating a budget. Well, you know what? I'm going to need a new stove anyways. But it's nice to be able to itemize what you're going to need to do in a house, whether it's caulking, whether it's getting a new stove, whatever these little things are, they add up. That brings me to something. In Canada, we obviously, inspections have limitations, right? You can't see everything. We talked about the walls before, but in the winter, what are the limitations of somebody buying, for example, in the winters, things that you're gonna for sure miss, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. And the biggest one is the roof. It's really hard to inspect the shingles properly with it being covered in snow. And
can you do anything about it, or not really?
So actually, I had one this week where it had just snowed. So like when we booked the appointment, there was no snow. By the time we got to the appointment, there was snow. So I was like, okay, well, this roof's probably going to be covered. What's one way I can do it? And I actually went to the MLS listing and looked at the pictures. And sometimes they have drone photos. So I use that photo to
sometimes
kind
they edit them too, you know?
Yeah. So luckily on this house, it wasn't edited, and I was able to see that like there were some signs. I'm like, okay. So then I put up my ladder and like scraped off some of the snow, and just to get a patch and take a picture and determine that. So that's one way. Other stuff is the landscaping, the drainage of the home. Once it's covered in snow,
that's the slope.
Yeah,
that's big. You always hear about slopes in home inspections.
Yeah.
AC, I guess you can't test the AC, right?
No, AC. The only thing we can go off of is the age.
Yeah.
And then advise the buyer to request the maintenance log, how frequent they've been maintaining the air conditioner. But typically, you can get 15 years out of them.
It's also like a gamble when you're buying in the winter. I tell buyers, there's really no way because I've seen new ACs malfunction within 2-3 years, right?
Yeah.
So it's just luck of the draw, right?
Yeah.
One big one that we find is when people are buying houses with pool.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, in the summer, are you able to inspect them? Do you inspect pools? Like, what do you look for in a pool?
Yeah, so with pools, it's tricky. The main thing is to check for leaks.
Right.
So now, if the pump is running, the system is working. It's cycling all the water, right? In terms of checking for chemicals, that changes day by day.
Right.
So you can't really go based on that. And then checking the liner in the pool, looking for any tearing.
Tears,
So there's not too much. At that point, you're more relying on the conditions that you put in the contract that it has to be in working order by closing. Right. And then other than that, you just check for leaks, that it's working, and
age,
and
I guess,
liner.
all these things. Yeah. Those are tricky things when you're buying. For anybody watching, he does his best to inspect everything. He's very thorough, and he's got the cameras. He can literally see humidity behind the walls because you've done that. So and then that raises a red flag, and he'll look further. But there's certain items, depending on the seasonality, that you can't check. There's nothing you can do about it, right? And you're taking that risk. And yes, we do put in a contract. A good agent would put in the contract, the seller represents and warrants that it's in working order. But at the end of the day, if you close in January, in June, that seller can be already long gone with his money. Good luck suing him. So it's that type of thing, right? Sometimes what's happening, I'm starting to see it coming back now, the market's a little bit slower, is that you're doing a holdback, especially for pools, right? So you're doing a holdback, or the lawyer's doing a holdback until closing in order for the buyer to make sure that the pool's working. But sellers don't like that because it's ambiguous. I can come in, buy the house in January, I can say in June, the pool's not working. Well, it's not working to my standards. So it's a gray area. It's always a risk. It's always going to be an issue if you have it. Now, most of the time, the pools are working fine. Yeah. But in that slight chance that it's not, it's really buyer beware. It's part of this, buying in the season.
Yeah, and I had an agent that we did an inspection on a home with a pool in the winter. And then once his buyers moved in, so the seller was representing himself. He didn't have an agent.
Okay. And then always fun.
Yeah, and then it turned out that the pool wasn't working, it hadn't been working for a while, and the seller was aware of it. And now because they weren't represented by an agent, they didn't know they had to disclose that. So now it's a huge legal
And that's the thing. Like, legally, the buyer has a pretty good chance of winning. I'm not a lawyer, but from what it sounds like from experience, it sounds like he has a good chance of winning. But now you're spending legal fees.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's unnecessary. So it's uncomfortable. And that's part of the risk when you're buying in any season. Every season has different things. So one question that I get asked a lot, I'll talk to you about it, right? We obviously discussed the benefits for a home buyer getting a home inspection. Essentially, you know what you're buying. If there's any big problems, you have the possibility of walking away, getting your deposit, or you can readdress it with the seller and say, hey, listen, these things are out of line. I'm not ready to take this house. Can you give me a discount, or can you fix them yourself? So there's always things that you can do to renegotiate if the inspection finds things that you're not comfortable with. But something's become quite common over the last few years are seller home inspections or pre-listing inspections, which is when a home seller wants to put the house up for sale and they'll call Oscar to do a walkthrough before. Now, tell us more about that.
Yeah, so pre-listing is typically it's done on a home where the agent feels it's an older home and a lot of issues might come up. So they want to get ahead of it and show transparency and be like, this is the home, this is the condition it's in, this is what you're going to be needing to fix. Sometimes the buyer doesn't always trust that report, so they'll still want their own inspector. There's been times where like I'll find more than what their inspector came in. And, so that's one of the things. And an advantage of doing a pre-listing inspection is quite a few. One of them is when you're buying a property, there's no cool-off period. You know, right. you can go to Best Buy and buy a camera and then 10 days later return it if you don't like it. With a home, once you sign, everything's firm. That's done. It. So if you're selling a home and you allow for a home inspection, even if it's 2 days, you're allowing them to kind of cool off during that time.
100%. It happens. It shouldn't, but it does. Yes.
I've had, and then a common thing or something that I hear often is that home inspectors kill deals.
Oh, deal killers. Yeah. So, yeah, you hear it. Is that guy a deal killer? I don't know. Dude. It depends on the house, I guess.
Or they're like, Oscar, go easy on the client.
You can't.
But I've had clients that like were midway through the inspection and they're talking with the parents.
Yeah.
The parents, come to the inspection as well, and they're looking at the layout and the kitchen. And next thing you know, they're talking about how the daughter likes to cook and the kitchen is not big enough and that they should move on to another home. And I'm not even done the inspection. Yeah. So it's you're giving that time for uncertainty. Now, as a seller, like you got the home ready, you're happy that you finally got an offer, you're almost at the finish point, and now because of the home inspection, whether they got scared with something that they saw or they just had a change of heart, something else came on the market, they don't like the home anymore.
Yeah.
Now the deal is done. So by doing a pre-list, you minimize all those risks.
Yeah.
You minimize having to renegotiate. You think that at the initial point you negotiate a price and you're set on it. Now the home inspection comes back with the report, and they're always going to ask for
I hate
money.
That. As a listing agent, I hate that. Like it's just like I disclose everything that I'm obliged to disclose right off the negotiation as a listing agent, because I don't want somebody coming back to me and say, "Well, the roof is like 15 years old." Like you know what I mean? And then I can see it both ways. As a home buyer, you don't want to have a roof that's going to be replaced in 5 years. Mm-hmm. You weren't counting for that. Yeah. And as a home seller, you're thinking, "Well, it's not leaking, so why would I fix it?" So might as well negotiate with that right off the bat than dealing with it. So it's obnoxious, but it's part of the business, right?
Yeah.
Now, one other thing that I wanted to mention with, talking about the pre-listing inspection is that it became very popular in a hot market, because at the end of the day, especially in Toronto or in areas where there's a lot of older homes, 100-year homes, 120-year-old homes, and they're being sold in multiple offers with 20, 30 people. And a lot of times the buyers don't have that confidence to go in firm because, they like the house, they like the location, but they don't want it to be falling apart. And a lot of listing agents were using that pre-list to kind of give it to the buyers ahead of time so they can have confidence in waiving the condition or adjusting their offer based on what they see in the report. So I think it's really important in a hot market for a home seller that might have a house that's older or that might raise concerns for a potential buyer. Just get ahead of that and provide a pre-list and deal with it. Yeah,
because if you have a buyer that's wanting to get into the bidding war or with the uncertainty of not having an inspector, kind of like they walk out right away. And by having a pre-list inspection, they can at least also be part of it. And now you have more demand and more people fighting for the home.
That's great. And now I wanted to touch on some of the questions that I get for home inspectors. A lot of people that I put it out that I'm going to be doing this with that. So we got quite a few questions that I want to go through. The first one that I get, and this is actually something that I've talked to you before, is like, what's funny things that you've seen of people trying to fool you? Because I'm guessing you see that, right? What? Tell me your experience with that.
Yeah,
try to fool inspectors.
Yeah, one of them which was pretty funny is it was in the summer and they had a deck, and it was just like a grade level, right? So it's not like on the second floor or anything. It was, and the home, whenever they try, it's put up for sale, they stage it, right? They try to make it look nice. So this home on the patio, they had a a patio set, the table, couches, whatever. And then for some reason there was just one random chair on like the complete opposite side. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense.
Probably the wind, I would have thought. But
Yeah, so as soon as I go over and move the chair, there's this huge hole on the deck, and it's just destroyed. Yeah.
Yeah, you see stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes they try to move around appliances and furniture to kind of, but if it doesn't make sense, then that's a red flag right away. Carpets, sometimes they, to hide the floor, any damages in the floor, they'll lay down carpet. So it's always important to just lift under them and
or
take
paint,
a look.
I guess, for mold, right? Like they try to paint over the mold and stuff like that.
Yeah. So if I see that there's a bunch of paint cans in the closets and stuff, I'd say, okay, like there's something going on. So start running the showers, the faucets for a longer time, so that if there's any leak, it has time to work its way through the drywall. And we can do our best, right, to try and. But some people really go out of their way to hide stuff. Even to the point where they shut off toilets.
Yeah.
So it's like, one toilet's not working, and it's like, well,
why, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. You see a lot. And then you see some homeowners that do absolutely no work. Because I think that's actually good about a pre-list home inspection. It's like, for example, a lot of the common things that I hear from you is the furnace filter is dirty, or it needs a little bit of caulking around the shower, caulking around the windows. Things that as a homeowner, before you put on the market, if you get a pre-list inspection, you can get ahead of, right?
Yeah.
And do them. And it's, what I always say to buyers is that the little things matter. I'm not looking for big renovations. I would rather see a house that has a new furnace, a new air conditioning, a newer roof. They've taken care of it. It might not be pretty, but the big ticket items are taken care of. That tells you a lot about the homeowner, and more than likely you can feel a little bit more assured that if the big things were done, the little things have not been neglected either.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll even open up the furnace panels, and they're like so clean.
Yeah.
And that's like, okay, like this person takes care of their home, because for the inside of the furnace to be clean, like they.
I like that. That's the type of home that gives me confidence as a buyer. It's like, okay, you know what? It might need new carpeting or new hardwood flooring, but I'm not going to get big surprises. And usually when they're that clean, you go from the bottom, you go up, and you keep on seeing that everything's in good working order, and it's kind of a clean health.
Yeah.
Bill. Now, another question that I have. The worst inspection that I've been through was actually with this guy, right? It was a house in Barrie not too long ago. I don't know if you remember that, right?
Yeah.
So the house seemed to be run down. It's a really good price. Like even back then in a hot market, it wasn't selling. It was a hot market. It really wasn't moving that well. It had sold conditional previously. It fell apart. The agent had told me that it fell apart because of financing, but then later I think we found other reasons. And I remember walking into that house, and the mold was just everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I walked in the main floor. One of the washroom's telltale signs were disconnected and had been turned into a storage room. But then when we went to the washroom that's actually working, I don't know if you remember, you actually found like a mushroom. Not fungus, not mold. Like there was a mushroom coming in between the tiles and the baseboard, like an actual mushroom. I don't know if you remember that. That was crazy.
And the tenant was actually there, and he was telling them that was like the third one that's gone.
Yeah, the third they actually pick it. So we're like, okay. And you could just smell the mold. It was black. I think they hadn't done anything to cover it. There was no attempt to cover it up. It was visible for anybody to see. And then I remember walking to the other room in that same house, and it had like a small balcony that people could walk out to go there. And in that balcony, there was a hole. Yeah. Like literally a hole going down to the main level.
Yeah. So just by the door. So you can tell that, especially in the winter or when it's raining, they walk in with wet shoes. Yeah. And that floor was just destroyed.
The foundation too, you found that the deck that I walked out to was actually like tilted as well. So it's really not a lot of remedy for that house, unless somebody comes in there and does everything, guts it completely from the ground up and goes crazy in it. Yeah,
there's some homes that I go through and I'm like, oh my God, like this report, like I start feeling bad because I'm like, this report is going to be huge. Like,
didn't I have a guy stop you one day? He's like, I think I remember one day he's like walking through and he's like, okay, that's enough, Oscar. Like, how much do we owe you? Like we'll walk. But what's the worst you've seen, man? That's the worst I've seen. Like, I want to hear, because you do a lot more of these. Yeah. So tell me your horror story.
Some of them are in the attic, just like the amount of mold, like, you mentioned before. Due to just bad ventilation, bad work, foundation issues are really bad on Century Homes, where it's like stone foundation. And then I remember I was in the crawl space, and the tenants were in the home during the inspection, and they're washing the dishes upstairs, and I just hear water running, and I'm like, what? Like that's weird. And it just like like draining out close by. And then I'm like looking for a pipe, and I see the pipe that's coming from the kitchen sink and just like near the foundation wall, just like draining all the water.
Nice.
And so like, but the foundation is just like eroding all the soil around it, and it was just a mess. And I was like, okay, after that, I'm like, I should get out of the crawl space. I've seen enough.
Yeah, no, for sure. Crazy things. And now talk to me about something funny. Like, what's the funniest thing? I know for you guys, you might not say it out loud right now, but for you, a pet peeve sometimes, I guess, is when the homeowner's falling around, right? And they're like, and they want to kind of argue with everything that you say. Like, you find something, even a filter, and they're, well, this and that, right? Is that kind of like your biggest pet peeve, the funniest thing that happens to you, or what's
it's tricky to navigate that because the report is confidential to my client. Right,
so they pay for it. Actually,
so whoever's paying for it and signs the contract, that's who my responsibility is to. And then, unless they give authorization, typically with the agent, we can discuss it. But it's never happened. But they could say like, no, not even my agent, which would never happen. But
that's right.
So sometimes the seller catches me and they're like, oh, like, how was the home? What'd you see? And it's like, sorry, like I can't discuss this with you. The only exception to that is if it's a life-threatening issue that we find for the people living there, then we have to disclose it, right? They're living there. So if I see like there's a gas leak or something serious electrical, I have to tell them. But that's the only time. But yeah, they're always trying to like get in there and see.
Follow you. Like some are very subtle with it and polite, and some are just flat out rude. Like, this guy's wrong. I hate this guy. He's a home inspector, and I'm gonna make his life miserable. And sometimes, like, as you said, family members or the buyers, they watch a couple of shows and they want to tell you what to do. You're like, no, this is right, it's wrong. I find that.
Or sometimes I've also had it where like I'm doing a pre-listing inspection and we're doing it for the seller. And they get the report back and they feel almost offended. They're like, what? Like, all this wrong with my house? And like, what is it gonna, it's like falling apart. And then we have to explain to them with the agent, like, no, like we're trying to be transparent. A lot of this stuff you can fix and we can come back and double check and adjust the report accordingly, right? So, yeah.
And that brings me, I'm gonna wrap it up just in the interest of time here. But a lot of people ask, like, is there a warranty or a guarantee? Like, when you do an inspection, so let's say you come in and you do an inspection, like what's the follow-up after that, right? What if there's a problem that you miss? Is there something any resources for the homeowner or what are the limitations with that?
Yeah, we're really limited because of the weather conditions. If a home has been vacant for a long time, it's really tough. So the home inspection really only covers that day. So after that, even if there's people living there, something can happen, right? They overload the system afterwards, and that's something that's out of our control. So we can't really warranty something that's out of our control.
Absolutely. And now to wrap it up, any tips for homeowners that you might have, whether they're putting the house on the market or or not? Like, what's the main advice of home inspector? Because he's seen it all.
Yeah.
So talk to them, talk some sense into them.
What's
the advice?
So the main thing to be aware of is that no home is perfect. So you need to go into the home inspection knowing that we're going to find issues. And what you need to be thinking about before going into the inspection is, what are you okay with? A lot of times agents ask you when you're looking for a home, what are your must-haves and things that are nice to have. So that same kind of question, you should go into a home inspection. And it's, okay, what am I okay with fixing? What am I okay with taking on the home? Whether that be that you find foundation issues or pricing. It could be like, you know what, as long as a home doesn't cost me more than $10,000 in repairs, I'm okay. So just start thinking about that before going into the inspection. A lot of the report is maintenance items. So you should really focus on the major structural, the expensive stuff. And then everything else is, like we said, caulking around windows, showers.
No home is perfect. You started with that, and that's the reality. Because I know you even do inspections for new builds as well, right? People hire you to do the, like, during the PDI period.
Like Terion, like the 1 year, 2 year.
Yeah, they must hate that. Builders hate that. When a home inspector comes in, they hate that. Hey, it's worth it, right? Like every house. Yeah. And I even have clients that periodically will call an inspector every 4 or 5 years just to see what's up, right? They can't inspect. They want to go into the attic. They want to see that there's no issues, right?
Yeah.
So that's also useful. Oscar, thank you so much for everything. I'm going to put your contact info in the link below. And anything you want to add before we wrap it up here?
Thank you, Eddie, for having me. It's been great. I share a lot of tips on social media. A lot of times people reach out to me and ask me questions, and I gladly answer anything I can. If you have a question about your home, recommendations, or even which direction to go to, right? I'm happy to do that. And I just I feel with my youth, I bring a whole different angle to the industry, and I take that as a big advantage.
Yeah, dude, you're doing great. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching. We'll be doing a lot more of these ones here. And if you have any questions, to email me, DM me, text me, whatever way you can get a hold of me. Till next time.